What if most of the pain you feel on a daily basis isn't actually being caused by your circumstances, but by your own mind's refusal to accept them? That's the central claim in Chapter 2 of Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, and it's one of the more confronting ideas in the entire book. The chapter is called Consciousness, the Way Out of Pain, and what Tolle is arguing here is both simple and radical. The greater part of human suffering is self-created. Not by fate, not by other people, not even by difficult events, but by the mind's continuous resistance to what is already happening right now. And the way out isn't therapy or positive thinking or changing your situation. It's consciousness itself, becoming aware, becoming present. In this summary, we're going to walk through exactly how Tolle builds that case, from how the mind uses time to escape the present, to a concept he calls the pain body, to why fear and the need to be right are actually symptoms of the same root problem. Let's get into it. Tolle opens Chapter 2 with a distinction that most of us have never been taught to make. He acknowledges that life contains real pain, loss, grief, hardship, and he isn't dismissing any of that. But he draws a sharp line between unavoidable pain and the enormous amount of pain we generate ourselves, moment to moment, through unconscious resistance to whatever is happening right now. His core claim is this: pain that you create in the present is always some form of non-acceptance. On the level of thought, that non-acceptance shows up as judgment, labeling a situation as wrong, unfair, or intolerable. On the emotional level, it shows up as negativity. And here's the key insight: the more intensely you identify with your mind, the more you suffer. Not because life is harder for you, but because you are more deeply fused with the resistance itself. Tolle isn't saying you should pretend difficult things are fine. He's saying that when the present moment is unpleasant, watching how your mind labels it and fights against it is itself a way out. The moment you observe the mechanics of that resistance, you step outside of it. You're no longer inside the pattern, you're watching it. And that shift, however small, creates space. It creates what Tolle calls a taste of inner freedom from external conditions. The instruction he gives is deceptively simple. Accept what is, then act if action is needed. Not passive resignation, but a fundamental yes to the reality of this moment before you decide what to do about it. He puts it plainly: whatever the present moment contains, work with it rather than against it. That shift alone, he says, can transform your entire life. So why does the mind resist the present moment so persistently? Tolle explains that it isn't accidental, it's structural. The mind requires time to function. It operates through the past and the future, analyzing what happened, planning what's next, worrying about what might go wrong. The present moment, the timeless now, doesn't give the mind anything to work with. And so the mind experiences the now as a kind of threat. Tolle uses a striking illustration here. Imagine the earth with no human beings, only plants and animals. Would there be a past or a future? Would time mean anything? He suggests that for a tree or an eagle, the only answer to what time is it would be now. Time, as we experience it, is a product of the human mind. It isn't inherently part of reality. The problem is that while we need the mind and its relationship with time to function practically in the world, most of us have reached a point where the mind has completely taken over. Instead of using time as a tool, we live inside it. We carry the weight of everything that's ever happened to us and the anxiety of everything that might happen next. And in doing so, we bury something Tolle calls being, the aliveness and creative potential that is only accessible in the present. He describes this as an accumulating burden. Every time we use the present moment merely as a stepping stone to some future goal, every time we dismiss now in favor of later, we add to that weight. The solution he offers isn't to abandon thinking or planning altogether. It's to reverse the priority. Instead of living in time and occasionally visiting the present, he says, make the now your home and visit past and future only when practical life requires it. This is where Tolle moves from diagnosis to practice. The instruction is clear even if living it takes real effort. Make the present moment the primary focus of your life. Not a concept to agree with intellectually, but an orientation to actually inhabit. He frames this as a kind of reversal. Most of us are oriented toward the future, We live in anticipation, in striving, in the constant sense that real life begins once something changes. Tolle says this orientation is itself the source of a massive amount of unnecessary suffering, not because goals are wrong, but because a life spent perpetually arriving never actually arrives. The core practice here is what he calls saying yes to the present moment, and he's careful about what he means. This isn't spiritual bypassing or pretending everything is good. The present moment might be uncomfortable, painful, or frightening. Saying yes means accepting that it is what it is, not adding the second layer of resistance on top of it. It's the difference between pain and suffering. Pain may be unavoidable. The suffering that comes from fighting reality on top of it is something we create. Tolle also offers a very practical mental sequence. Accept, then act. Don't act from a place of resistance or judgment, because actions taken from that state tend to create more of what you're trying to escape. First, accept the reality of what is. Let it be what it is. Then, from that more grounded place, take whatever action is appropriate or possible. This is central to the idea of consciousness, the way out of pain. It's not about escaping discomfort. It's about meeting it without the added weight of mental resistance. One of the most distinctive concepts in this chapter, and really in the whole book, is what Tolle calls the pain body. The idea is this: every time you experience emotional pain without being present to it, that pain doesn't fully resolve. It leaves a residue. Over time, that residue accumulates, layering over childhood experiences, past losses, old wounds, and eventually it forms something like an autonomous energy field within you. Tolle describes it as a negative entity that inhabits your body and mind, not literally a separate being, but something that functions like one. The pain body has two states, dormant and active. When it's dormant, you might not notice it, but when something triggers it, an offhand comment, a particular tone of voice, a situation that echoes old pain, it activates. And when it does, it essentially takes over. Your thinking becomes dark, your reactions become disproportionate, and you start unconsciously seeking out more pain to feed on. Because that's the other important thing about the pain body. It survives by feeding on negativity. It cannot feed on joy or peace, only on anger, drama, grief, and conflict. Tolle is very clear that the way to dissolve the pain body is not to fight it, analyze it, or suppress it. Trying to fight it actually gives it more energy. The only thing that works is conscious attention. The moment you observe the pain body, when you feel its energy field within you and recognize it as the pain body rather than identifying with it as yourself, you break the identification. You become the witness. And in the light of that conscious presence, what Tolle calls the power of now, the pain body begins to lose its hold. Consciousness, he says, transmutes it. What was trapped, contracted energy starts to release. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit with this chapter. It's dense material and it deserves more than a quick scroll. Before you go, I'd love to know, where in your own life do you recognize what Tolle is describing here? Maybe it's a recurring pattern of worry, or a relationship where the pain body seems to show up, or just that background hum of restlessness that never quite goes away. Drop it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what this one stirs up for you. If you want to keep going with the power of now, we're working through the whole book chapter by chapter, so hit subscribe and you won't miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.